Excellent. Welcome back, guys. New year. It's exciting. First thing I want to talk about is that we will have a high school assembly either next week or the following week. I intend on meeting with the student council tomorrow to discuss that. Today's meeting is going to be focusing on grading and how that looks this year, because it is very different for those of you that have been here. If you're new to the school, this will just be the way you know it. But we wanted to take some time because how you're getting feedback, what your report card looks like, and how you'll be earning credits are going to change a little bit, and we'll go into those details. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. First of all, welcome back, everyone. We're excited for a new year. Kind of talking about assembly procedures. So one, this is better than it was last year, but I think there's still a little bit of room for improvement. One, you should not have your backpacks in here. So please don't bring your backpacks in here. Keep them outside, you can imagine. Two, stay with your class, please. That way there's a little bit of accountability that goes on, because we will be asking you teachers to take roll when they come in here. And three, while we're in assemblies, please do not use your cell phone. I'll have to take them. I don't want to take them because I don't want to hold your cell phone. But we would never take you out of class unless we thought it was important. Either we need your attention or your participation. So please keep your cell phones in your pocket during the duration. Thank you, guys. One last thing I want to remind you of. Somebody might have to help me out. I think athletic tryouts are on the 13th through the 15th. It should be in your GAA email. So please check that if you're interested in participating in one of the sports this fall. Tryouts are coming up, so please be aware of that. So I'm going to hand it over to our principal, Ms. Banner.
Thank you, Mr. Klinkhammer. Good morning, guys. Thank you for coming in so orderly. That's awesome. You did much better than middle school students, so thank you for that. This morning is going to be a little bit different kind of assembly, because as Mr. Klinkhammer said, typically we would have you in here on the first or second day, third day of school talking about procedures and rules and all that kind of stuff. That will be coming. But today is super important for you, because you're going to see some things much differently in your classrooms. For the past 2 years, your teachers and all of the people who work here, all of the adults, we have been working on something called standards-based learning. And we are now implementing it. This is our rollout this year. And so you need to understand what that means for you, because it's all about you and it's all about your learning. So for 2 years, your teachers have been working on aligning your curriculum and working with rubrics and all of this. Some of you have seen that, some of you have not. But this year, everyone will see that. So it's important that you understand it. We are not the only school doing this. I could name at least 25 international schools and probably several hundred American schools that have implemented standards-based learning. So that's what our presentation is about today. Now, each one of you are getting ever closer to college and university. And what comes after college and university when you graduate? What happens next? Jobs, right? Isn't that kind of, in adulthood, isn't that kind of the natural progression? Okay, so it's 2018, and jobs are vastly different than when I was sitting where you are. Vastly different. They require a vastly different skill set from people today. Many jobs that you're going to have, we don't even know what they are yet. They haven't even begun to exist. So we have to prepare you for that world, or this world that you're in. We have to prepare you. Schools have been operating the same way for the last 100 years, but we're in a much different environment. So if we don't prepare you for that, we're not doing you justice, right? So that's why this is so important. Each one of you is on a journey. Whether you do it or not, you're on a journey. You're on a learning journey. And every person in here learns at different rates, in different ways, at different times. And so it behooves us, as the adults working with you, to make sure that we're meeting your needs as a learner. Because if we don't, and if you don't learn how to think critically, to problem solve, to be able to evaluate information, we're not doing our best for you. So you know that any information that you want, you can find where? Right here. Just about anything you need to know is right here. But it's what you do with this information that separates you out. For instance, recently I went into the simulator out here at Etihad and flew a Boeing 787 with a real live captain. And it was eye-opening to me how much that man had to know, but more importantly, how quickly he needed to evaluate the information in front of him. Yeah, he needed to know calculus, he needed to know thermodynamics, he needed to know weather, he needed to know all of those things. And that was pretty impressive. But what was more impressive was to watch how he evaluated that information when one of the engines went out. Simulator. With 400 people sitting in the back. So he had to know how to think critically, evaluate instantly. And that is a skill that we believe is very, very important for all of you to know how to do, because that's what you're going to have to do when you get to university and when you get into your jobs. So that's a little bit of background about why we're launching into standards-based grading. Okay? We're going to start this morning with watching a video, and as you look at it, I want you to think about thinking. Think about how you think about thinking. Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
I'm worried really about how much the fuzzy thinking is going on in the world. Fuzzy thinking, people just not thinking straight. Consider this following example. Imagine you have a spelling bee. And this is contrived, but it makes the point. There's a spelling bee, and you have to spell the word cat. Okay. So one student spells it C-A-T. Person got it right. Next person spells it K-A-T. That's wrong. You got that wrong. Okay. Third person spells it X-Q-W. You realize that is marked equally as wrong with the K-A-T? When you could argue that K-A-T is a better spelling for cat than C-A-T. Dictionaries know this because that's how they spell it phonetically. And so we've built a system for ourselves where there's an answer and everything else is not the answer, even when some answers are better than others. So our brains are absent the wiring capable of coming up with an original thought. If you're an employer and two candidates come up looking for a job, and this is, again, a contrived example, and you're interviewing the two candidates, and you say, as for part of this interview, I just want to ask you, what's the height of the spire on this building? And the candidate says, oh, I was an architect. I majored in architecture for a while, and I memorized the heights of all the buildings on campus. I know the height of that spire is 150 feet. In fact, 155 feet tall. Okay, turns out that's the right answer. That's the right answer. And the person came up with it in second. That person goes away, the next candidate walks in. Do you know the height of the spire on this building? The candidate says, no, but I'll be right back. The person runs outside, measures the length of the shadow of that spire on the ground. measures the length of her own shadow, ratios the height to the shadows, comes up with a number. Runs back inside, it's about 150 feet. Who are you going to hire? I'm hiring the person who figured it out, even though it took that person longer, even though the person's answer is not as precise. I'm hiring that person. That person knows how to use the mind in a way not previously engaged. You realize when you know how to think, it empowers you far beyond those who know only what to think.
Our goal for you, when you leave here, is that you know how to think. And you may think, well, I know how to think. But you need to think about that. Do you know how to evaluate? Do you know how to synthesize? Do you know how to apply in every situation? So that's where we're going with this. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kirby. Mr. Kirby is leading our standards-based learning team. And this is a team of adults who are working with your teachers to help make sure that as we implement standards-based learning, we're doing our very best for you. Ms. Parker, Jen Parker, our curriculum coordinator, is also part of that team that will be working with teachers to work with you. All right, Mr. Kirby.
All right, thank you. So hopefully some of you who I taught last year are looking at this saying, yeah, I get it. Hopefully, because that was our goal, and you heard me go on and on about this repeatedly. It's about how you learn, not what you learn. Memorization, I can look it up. I can Google it. Now I don't even have to type anything. I can say, hey Siri, tell me, and she'll tell me. That isn't how to think. Oh. For some reason, she's now telling puns. I don't know what she heard, but so that's an example, right? I don't need to know what a pun is or an example, but she'll give me one. Perfect. Thanks, Siri. So today, what we want to do is make sure that we all have a common understanding and common language for what we're going to be doing this year. So a few of the things you can see up here. What is it? Why are we doing it? What you will need to know about achievement, and how will reassessments work. And that's going to be a little bit different. I know many of you were doing them last year, but this year it's going to be slightly different, and it's going to be the same across all of high school. So, what is standards-based learning? Again, we will use this abbreviation, SBL. You'll hear standards-based learning, standards-based assessment, standards-based teaching, grading, assessing. But the idea is the same, that there are standards in the curriculum for every course that you have to achieve. That's what we want you to learn. That's what we want you to be able to do, right? So that is what we teach. Yeah?
Jump in here. And that is what your teachers have been working on for 2 years, honing down what those standards are and why they're important for you to know and be able to be proficient in.
Thank you. It has been a lot of work. We've been trialing things, practicing, testing things out, and that's what you do in life. And obviously, scientific method is that way. And now we're doing it. So this is the year that we're stepping into it. Wheels on the ground, and off we go. So you can see here, there's a few things that are probably recognizable, a few terms. But the main idea is that we're going to be assessed on a proficiency level, which is like somewhat of a scale. And it's going to be on how well you're demonstrating those standards. It's not about how many questions you got wrong. How well are you demonstrating that you can evaluate a situation? How well are you able to analyze text, for example? So that isn't a right or wrong answer, as you saw from that video. Those things are very open, right? So that's why this proficiency level is going to be so important for you. And there's a lot more coming up about why it's going to be a value for learning. And of course, it's a continual journey. We never stop learning. The teachers will never stop learning. You will never, ever stop learning. You might think, oh, I'm done with school when you're, whatever it might be, 22, for example, 23. But that doesn't mean you stop learning. You go into a job, you have to learn that job. You decide to get married, you have to learn how to work with somebody. You have kids, you have to learn how to be a parent. You will never stop learning, but we want you to have those skills that apply to every one of those situations and be able to use them. So, now why is it best for you? Why are we doing this? As you heard, schools around the whole world are doing this. It's not just here, it's not just the US, it's every continent and likely every country has schools doing standards-based learning right now. It's going to be accurate for you. So when you are taking an assessment on specific standards, it's going to be just on that standard. Now I give an example where maybe communicating ideas is the standard, and you make a poster, right? We've all done this in the past, I'm sure. You make this beautiful poster and it's so colorful, and you say, oh, I should get a better grade because look at how nicely I cut out all the shapes and glued them on my poster. Well, that has nothing to do with the standard, does it? It might be part of the process or the task, but it has nothing to do with that standard. It just looks nice, right? And that's not fair to someone who may not have those resources at home. We're not assessing you on something that isn't directly related to the standards. So you're going to see a clearer picture of where to go and how to get there. So on a proficiency scale, a lot of you have seen that rubric that goes from emerging up to mastery. That criteria in there is specific. It's going to tell you what you need to do to get better. There's going to be feedback provided from your teachers on your assessments, telling you how to move forward. And of course, the idea is we keep moving. We keep moving forward, trying to get to that mastery level. Now this part, accurate, fair, and reliable. Many of you have experienced someone taking, let's say, an English class in grade 9, and there's 2 or 3 or 4 different teachers. I know I had that in high school. And there was always that discussion, oh, I got so-and-so, they're a hard grader, I'm not going to do well. Oh, I got this teacher, it's going to be so easy. They just mark so easy, right? This changes that. Your teachers are moderating and working together on these assessments, on these rubrics that you're going to see, so that it is the same. So it doesn't matter what class you are in, it doesn't matter what teacher you have, it's going to be consistent. It's going to be the same, and that's what we want. It is fair. That means it's going to be reliable, and of course, it's going to be accurate because those criteria that you see in a rubric are very easy for you to understand and appreciate. So, many of you have maybe heard of this example. I think this is a great one. So we've got Skydive Dubai, right? Have any of you done skydiving? Are you even allowed? I think maybe you have to be 18 or 19. Well, let's imagine your grade 12 graduation present is you get to go skydiving. Imagine that, right? Your present for graduating is your parents want to throw you out of an airplane. Maybe. Never mind, I'll keep that to myself. Yeah, so, what we've got is a situation here. So, we've got 3 students who want to work for Skydive Dubai, and their plan is to be able to pack a parachute so that it opens and everything works well, right? Makes sense. That's what you probably want, is the parachute to open. So, as part of this course, they're going to be taught how to pack the parachute. They're going to be taught how to fold the fabric, how to tie the knots. They're going to be taught all those fine points that are involved in the parachute opening. Important, right? So, we're thinking about how many times should these students be tested on their packing knowledge and skills. I can't imagine you'd want someone packing your parachute because they passed one test, now you're an expert. Imagine this, you now have your graduation present, Skydive Dubai certificate, off you go. The company tells you there's 3 students and you get to choose the student that packs your parachute. So, if we look at this, 60% you see in red, that's a pass. That means hopefully it unfolds correctly, you pull the cord, it actually opens, you float down nice and safe. 60% is a pass. You want to pass, right? You want somebody who packs that correctly. So if we see these 3 students, student A, B, and C, we have a 70%, a 67, and a 60. Now right off the top of our head, from traditional grading, we would say, well, student A, that's who I want packing my parachute. They got a better grade. It's a higher number. It's a better score. I don't think you'd be wrong in thinking that by looking at this, right? That's kind of common for us. 70 is better than 67, which is better than 60. But there's a bigger story that percentages, and therefore letter grades, don't tell us. And that's what we really want to focus on. The learning. What is happening? So let's take a look at this better. Now we've got a graph. Let's say this is over 9 months, 10 months. It's a big, intensive course. People's lives are at stake here. So there's a summative assessment, or a test, every month for 9 months, 10 months, let's say. Now, we can look at this graph, look at the same students, and look at those percentages much differently. They mean something in a different way to us now. Originally, we said student A, 70%, right? That's who you want to pack your parachute. But look at this, right? Student A, they started off the very first test, they passed. Okay, great. Oh, then they even got better. Month 3, worse. Better, worse, better, worse, better, worse. Not consistent, are they? 50-50 chance if you pick that student that your parachute's going to open, if we look at it, right? One test is great, one test not so great. I know I wouldn't want that person packing my parachute. It's a flipping a coin. Heads, your parachute opens. Tails, it doesn't. I'm not willing to take that chance, right? So I don't want that student packing my parachute. Now if we look at student C, for example, the lowest one, 60%, we said, right? It's still, what we said was a pass. It still works, right? But look at this one. We've got that person started off strong. Yep, everything was good. And then for some reason, about 5 months in, they started failing every test. I do not want that person packing my parachute. Why? Because for the last 3 or 4 months, they've never done it. I don't trust that. That's my life, right? I don't trust that. However, student B was a 67, and look at this. They started the course pretty low, we'll say. Would you expect this student to know how to pack a parachute when they've signed up to a Learn How to Pack a Parachute course? Probably not. That's why they've signed up, is to learn. So it's not hard to understand that you might come in at this point. But here's the catch. They put in a lot of time and effort, they've practiced, they've studied, there are instructors there to help them, and they're getting consistently better and better and better. And now, after that 6 month, they're getting it right every time. Every time. That's who I want. That's who I want to pack my parachute. They've demonstrated that they were learning, consistently getting better, and now they're doing it without any, fallbacks under that line. So, the idea behind standards-based learning is just this. We all learn at different times, but the goal is the same. We want you to master these standards, right? Looking at this, hopefully you can see how percentages do not tell the whole story, right? How many of you have had a Unit 1 assessment or a test and then it never really comes back again? Why would we stop you from wanting to continue learning? Why would we want to stop you from developing your skills? We don't want that. We want you to continue. And that's what standards-based learning allows, is for you to keep moving forward and always get better. All right, that was the idea there. Certainly wouldn't be interested in that 70%. I don't want to flip a coin if my life is on the line. So I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Parker here to kind of let you know what's going to stay the same and what's going to change for you.
Okay, so a bunch of you are probably sitting here going, okay, so what's the big deal? What does this have to do for me, right? So here's some things that are going to stay the same, something to think about. You're still going to have letter grades and a GPA appear on your transcript. For grade 9 students, transcripts are something new for you. Okay, so this is something important for you to know. Assessments are going to continue to be reported, their achievement reported on an online grade book. Okay, we've got Power School this year, so you'll be learning and seeing that more. Okay? You'll continue to have regular assessments. You have an end of course exam, the end of this school year, okay, in all of your courses. We continue to value your work completion, organization, all those other things, and under the umbrella of those approaches to learning. Okay, so we measure them and report those. Your achievement will continue to be communicated on those assessments. You'll see some feedback on your achievement, what you've done well. Okay? And report cards, continue to have report cards issued to you communicating your achievement and additional comments.
Ms. Parker,
Yeah.
you're reminding them too, you're going to get report cards 4 times a year now instead of just at the end of the semester.
Yeah, we're going to move to the different now. And I want you to think about different for a second, because when Apple comes out with a different product, why do they do that? When Nintendo comes out with a different product, why do they, okay, yeah, they want to make money, but well, how are they going to know that somebody's going to buy that new product to make money? Because they want them to give you something better, right? They're aiming to give you something better. It's better, it's improved, new and improved, right? So when we go through this list of different, I want you to remember that. Different isn't bad. The aim here is different's better for you, okay? So the assessments are aligned to specific standards. So it's not going to be an A at the top of your page. It's going to look different because it's aligned to specific standards. This is better. This is more feedback for you. Okay. The work completion, organization, etc. aren't necessarily linked directly to that assessment or directly linked to your grade. It's reported separately. As I said earlier, you'll see more specific academic feedback. So there will be more feedback on your assessment. You'll know more about what you're doing well and more about areas you need to improve. Again, as I said, how achievement is communicated on assessments is going to look different. There won't be a letter grade. There won't be a points or score. It will look different. It will look better. You'll get a chance to see what the report card will sort of look like too. It looks slightly different, but it's better, trust me. Okay? You'll have lots of rubrics, so that will define your proficiency criteria. So you'll know what to expect to show success, to show what you've learned. You'll have an opportunity for reassessments. We have a new online gradebook. There are no more end of semester 1 exams or midterm exams. We only have end of course exams at the end of this school year. And as Ms. Banner said earlier, we have our progress reports, or our report cards, so to speak. They come out 4 times a year. Okay? Different, but better.
There's a lot of grumbling about that 4 times a year progress reports. Okay, remember, she said, this is better. If you only find out 1 time a year where you're standing on your learning journey, that gives you 1 opportunity to think about what you need to do. If you're getting them regularly, now you know in October, I better step it up here rather than February. Okay, so that's what the 4 progress reports are designed to do. They're designed to help you, to inform you of where you are and what you need to do. That's all. That's all that they're about. Yes. Yes. Your grade, your final grade, will be a year-long grade. It doesn't reset at the end of first semester. That's a good thing for you. That's a really good thing for you because you have multiple opportunities for improvement. And in a moment, Mr. Kirby is going to explain to you your opportunities for reassessment. What does reassessment mean? Like redoing something, retaking something? Okay, it's not just a redo. He'll explain to you what's involved in that. Okay. Yes. His question is, if we have 4 report cards, does that mean we have 4 exams? No. No, your report card is not based on an exam. Okay, let's shift your thinking a little bit. Your progress report is based on the progress that you're making in your learning. That's a different way of thinking, right? You guys have been in a traditional school setting where it's all about percents and grades, points, percents. We're not in that environment anymore. We're in an environment where we're going to tell you why, whereas previously you may have gotten a 73% on this project that you've worked on. But as we saw with the parachute example, what does that mean? It certainly didn't mean in this example what we thought it meant, did it? So you need to sort of shift your way of thinking about your learning. It's about the learning, not a grade, not a percent, not points. Okay? You had a question?
Yeah, so you said there's no semester exams.
True.
Does that include IB classes?
IB is a little bit different. We'll talk about IB. EOCs, your end of course exam is what you'll have at the end of the year. All right, we'll have a question answer time at the end.
Sure.
Guys, this is the IB. That's what this is. How many of you are DP students are in IB course? So most of you know this already. You have rubrics for all of your IAs, for the papers that you write. That's what you don't call it standards-based learning in the IB. You call it course objectives, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So just like your IB courses, you're being reassessed all the time, right? Right? You asked the question, right? You're being reassessed all the time on the same task. And that's how your grade is factored. That's standards-based learning. You're going to be reassessed. And we'll show you a report card here in just a moment. But your report card is going to have somewhere between 5 and 7 reportable standards. And you'll be reassessed on this over and over. And it's continually running, just like it is in the IB. And so those of you that are in an IB course, you already know this, because that's what this is. They just use a little bit different terminology, okay?
So, piggybacking off of that comment, let's look at this. This is what we would associate as traditional grading, right? We just did this with the parachute. We did this with that video with Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about right or wrong. There was no in between. That's not a proficiency scale. So we see a C minus, right? What does that mean? What was I doing well? What was I needing to work on? Doesn't tell me that. 81%. All that tells me is out of that many points, that's the percentage that was calculated. doesn't tell me how I can improve my writing skills, doesn't tell me how I can make better connections between my introductory paragraph and the body of my essay. So 34 out of 47, same thing. This doesn't tell a story. This won't help you improve. So this is going to be wordy, but remember, you've seen these before. We don't need to read it. This is a very large and in-depth high school rubric. Don't worry, like I say, this you will understand in your classes when you're doing this. But you can see there's a lot of information here. Even if that's the only thing you're noticing, how much information is there, that's kind of the point. We want you to know exactly where you are with this standard. So in one assessment, you're going to have multiple standards, right? So that C minus is just kind of taking all of that information and giving you a letter. It's not telling you how you're doing with each of the standards. Now this is not new for some of you, but when you get it back, you might see something like this. Okay, now you've got some information to work with. I see that I'm mastery with analyzing and evaluating up here. I know now as a student, I'm probably okay with that at this moment, but I might be more concerned about down here, producing clear and coherent writing. That's where I am now. That doesn't mean that's where I will stop. I will continue to move forward. How do you move forward? Well, with feedback from your teachers, but also you've got these indicators in your rubric. It tells you how to get better. And that's going to link up with our reassessment upcoming. So this is helpful. This is helping you get better. I use the example of, a lot of you know I play American football. If a coach told me one time at the end of the year, after the season was over, said, "You're an 83% football player." First I would say, what does that mean? There's so many positions in the game. I don't tackle anybody. Does that mean that's counted? I'm a 0 on tackling, but a 71% in running and catching? What does that mean? It doesn't tell me anything. Not only that, I wish that coach would have told me that before we even started the season, so I would know what to improve on. And that's what this is. You're going to get feedback. You're going to get information to make you better, to make you understand, to allow you to demonstrate more. That's the point. So, this is the difference. C minus doesn't tell me anything. I don't know how to improve. That rubric does tell me how to improve with very specific feedback. Now, this is the sample report card. It's not complete yet, but this is going to give you an idea of what you're going to see each quarter. And this is more information, allowing you to work on specifics. So of course, as we mentioned, you are going to get an overall letter grade for your classes. That will be on your report cards and transcripts. But look down here. We've got, let's say this is Integrated Math 3. Now, before, you might just see Integrated Math 3B. Again, what does that mean? How can I get better? What can I do to improve on the standards in Unit 1? How can I get better? Doesn't tell me if it's just a B. Down here, however, you're going to start to see that information come through. We've got an M down here for mastery. So when it comes to solving problems using exponential and logarithmic relationships, I know I've got that. I demonstrated that throughout the year or the quarter. I'm solid with that. I've got mastery. But if I look at this is a D, stands for up here, developing, we know. Maybe my model periodic events with trigonometric functions, that needs work. I'm struggling with that. Now I can improve. If I just see a B, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to get better. It's this learning journey. It's all about this learning. Again, I mentioned this before. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but if you asked a teacher, not a math teacher maybe, or maybe not a teacher, go ask an adult, can you graph this parabola for me? Chances are they're not going to be able to do it. Did they do it when they were in high school? Yeah, they did. They passed math, right? Algebra, they did that. I did it. But where did that information and knowledge go? It was memorized, so it's kind of disappeared from me now. Can I figure out how to do it? Can I research? Are my research skills up to par so that I can go online? Can I evaluate the websites that I'm looking at to figure out which one is going to give me the most reliable information? Can I then apply that information that I've read from a text and apply it to that problem and come up with an answer? Then that's what we're talking about. Neil deGrasse Tyson mentioned it again. Someone who can use the skills and use their mind to do something, it's going to be a bigger value for you and for, realistically, society if you're using your mind in that way. And again, I use this example, I apologize, but I've talked about, right now the world we don't have a cure for cancer, do we? We don't have a cure for cancer. We want one, right? If you just memorize every single textbook on the planet that is written right now, is the answer going to be there? No, it won't be, because we don't have it yet. We're looking for the person who's going to be able to take that information, look at it in a different way, and come up with a solution. That's what we want. If you just know everything that's out there now, you can't move forward. We need to be able to think critically, creatively, think about solutions in a different way, and come up with answers. All right. So this is the reassessment talk, and I'll go through this a little bit more afterwards as well.
So to kind of pick up where he left off, how does this work? And in order for this to be successful, in order for you to be successful, you have to have something that's called growth mindset. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I ask this question because this is the thing I hear most often from parents, other educators. How many of you are bad at math? Very common. To be honest with you, every one of you is wrong. You're wrong. You're not good at math yet. And to have that mindset is all the difference in the world. And in fact, Ms. Banner talked about all of the resources that are available to you with that. Well, one of the things that is also available to you at this point in time that wasn't available at your teachers when they were going through high school is that we know more about the mind and learning than we've ever known. Quantum computing, AI, this allows us to analyze data in a way that we've never been able to analyze data. And the fact that you just say to yourself, I'm not good at this skill yet, is all the difference in the world of you learning that skill. Just by you saying that, I'm not good at this yet. And we all have proclivities. Do you know what I mean by proclivities, Yusuf? It means we all have certain talents, right? Like, I'm not very musically talented. And if you gave me a piece of music, it would take me a long time to get there, but eventually I could get there. I learned to play the piano and the drums, but I wouldn't be like Mr. Thorpe, who is a music teacher, right? Music naturally came to him, and that's why he had an interest in it. But if you gave me a piece of music to play on the piano, and I sat there and studied, I could play that piece. Just like you can learn math. Just like you can learn to write an essay. For some of you, it's going to take a little bit more time than others, but that's the whole purpose here. That's why we're going to this. The feedback is going to be more accurate. What is required on your part is you have to say that I can do this. And I have to seek out the help that I need. I need to keep practicing and devote some time to this. And that you can reach proficiency in every single standard that you come across, even if it's in a course or in a discipline that doesn't come naturally to you. And so that's what's required of you here. And so that's why we give multiple opportunities here to show your success. And what Mr. Kirby's going to go over here in just a minute is how do you get those multiple opportunities? Because again, there's going to be a discipline that goes along with that. You're going to have to do a little bit of work. Because as you can imagine, to give you multiple opportunities takes a lot more work on the teacher's part. They have to rewrite assessments, they have to regrade these sorts of things. So if everybody just said, you know what, I'm gonna not try on the first one and I'll try later when I have more time to study, you might not get that second opportunity if you don't follow the procedures, because we have a specific form here that you're going to fill out, and what you have to show in that is that growth mindset that, look, I've analyzed where I went wrong on that assessment, I've taken steps to recover that knowledge or that skill or whatever is being asked of me in that standard, and bless you. And I've done all the work that is required of me. So I'm going to let Mr. Kirby kind of talk to you about it, but I want you to put that term in your head, growth mindset. One is because this is a priority of this school. And this is one of those major initiatives that we have this year that I will keep coming back to. Each time we have an assembly, as I have private conversations with you, but it is important on your part that you know in your mind that you can acquire a skill.
All right, so again, many of you have had reassessments in the past, and this year it's going to be the same for everyone. So what's going to happen, as we just discussed, it's for a purpose. This is to help you learn, help you improve, and help you grow. Now, let's look at this. So there's a couple things here, and this is very important. So what's happening is that tomorrow in your third block, your teachers are going to be running through a lesson somewhat similar to what you've been doing with the handbook, but really making sure that you're aware of how this process works. We've told you the why, but when that time comes, if that time comes for you, we want to make sure that you know how to do this effectively, because there is a process now. Students are responsible for taking action. It is your responsibility. You may choose not to reassess. Great, that's your choice. If you do choose to reassess, then that is where you take the initiative. It will already be on your class pages under a reassessment tab, where the form is there. And now, what I'd like to do is quickly show you how that works. So, you may reassess a summative assessment one time, if you're approved. So you aren't going to get 20 times throughout the year to keep attempting it. It's just not practical. As we said, your teachers have possibly 100 to 130 other students that they're trying to give the exact same descriptive feedback and assistance to, and we have to draw the line somewhere. So what we've got is one reassessment opportunity on these summative assessments.
Mr. Kirby, what's a summative?
Thank you. A summative assessment will occur at the end. Hands up if you think you know the difference between summative and formative. All right, not bad. So, summative is a summation. It's the end, right? That's the one that is reported on a report card. A formative is just that. It is forming how we instruct, maybe what extra assistance is needed, how we can support you, and it's also allowing you to see what you need to do to improve, but they will not be counted in your report card, all right?
In a traditional setting, a quiz in a unit is a formative. A unit test at the end is the summative. See the difference? Good.
Thank you. So, you will initiate this because you're a responsible learner. You're going to do this. Now here's some requirements, and I'll briefly get into that, but you're going to have to show some evidence of acting on feedback. You're not just going to say, oh, I did poor, can I try again? That's not going to work. You're going to have to show that you're taking action to improve the things that you needed to improve. And there's an application form for that. Now, just being honest, there are going to be some times where your application form isn't going to cut it. Study harder. No, that's not going to work. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? So looking ahead here, this is the form. It's very empty. It's very blank. But there's two important sections, of course, and I'll go through those. There's a reflection and a smart learning plan. So the reflection has three very simple questions. This is the same questions for grade 6 or grade 12. It says, the standards I want to improve. If you can't identify what you needed to improve, the rest won't work. How are you going to make a plan then to improve something that you didn't know you needed to improve? I didn't achieve my desired achievement level because, remember, this is a reflective process. What happened, basically? Explain. Tell us why didn't it go the way you thought. And I could have prepared better by, now start thinking. Troubleshoot. What could I have done better? And that can be your smart learning plan. You've all heard, well, likely all have heard SMART goals or SMART plans. This is the idea: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Now you're going to make a plan. Okay, you want to do a reassessment? How will you prove that you're taking action on the feedback that we've given you as a teacher? You've got all this information. You've got all these assessments. You've got all these rubrics. How are you going to improve? All right, so very quick example. Specific. If this is your SMART plan, this will not work. I will study harder. I will try harder, right? That's not going to work. What could work, dependent on your assessment, I will rewrite my story and use the teacher's feedback to make improvements. Now that's still simplified, but that's an example. That's got more to it. That's more specific. Measurable, often a tricky one. We often think numbers. How do I measure this? Not specific. It'll be better. My story will be better. Well, better and worse is somewhat measurable, but that doesn't make any sense, right? More specific, I will self-assess my story using the rubric and the feedback. So if you were emerging, you rewrite this story, look at the rubric again, and you think, actually now it's proficient. That's measurable. Now you've measured improvement. But again, why stop there? Maybe this student says, you know what, I'm also going to get 2 classmates to assess my story as well. Just like science, you're not going to do one experiment and say that's the end result, I did it. You're going to test it multiple times to see if it's the same result. Maybe you use your classmates, your friends. All right. So this will go into much more detail tomorrow in that lesson, but here's the main idea. You do your assessment, you're going to get it back with feedback and a proficiency level. That's normal. Now, if you're happy, you're done. Of course, you don't need to reassess, right? You're done. Move on. However, you think, I need to improve this, I think I can do that. So I'm going to print off my application form from class pages. I'm going to complete the reassessment application within a week. We want that within a week because you've got your assessment back. A week later, it's still there. You're still thinking about it. You're still conscious of the skills that you used. The rubric and the language is all still fresh in your mind. If you wait 4 months and then say, oh, I want to try again because I just forgot that I didn't come to you, that's too late. We want you engaged in this learning. So then your plan is approved or not. If you say, I will try harder and read all the books, well, that might not be enough and your plan may not be approved, and that's the end. You won't get that reassessment opportunity. Now, if you do carry out your SMART plan, which might be, I want to have a half-hour tutoring session with my teacher, I might want to rewrite my story, etc., carry it out, bring that to the teacher, then it's approved, and now you get that reassessment opportunity. So that will be decided on between yourself and the teacher, but it will be outside of class time. And here's something a little bit different than last year, I know. If it is a lower proficiency level, it will replace the grade. Last year, I know directly from my class, we gave you the option, right? It was which one, the original assessment or the reassessment? That's not best practice. What we want to know is exactly where you are in the most recent time. And your reassessment is the most recent time, all right?
We're almost finished, but the key thing for you to know here is number 7. Your teacher has the final say on this. So if your teacher says, no, you haven't shown me in this plan that you've really done anything meaningful for me to grant you this opportunity, it's done. You don't come to me, you don't go to Mr. Cleanhammer, it's between you and your teacher. Your teacher has the professional judgment to know whether you should be allowed this opportunity. Not me, I'm not in your class. That your teacher is. So understand that is a relationship that you are cultivating with your teacher, and your teacher knows what's best for you there. Okay? So the teacher has the final say on that.
I'll just piggyback on that for one moment. They've got the data, and here's a great example. I use this in a positive way. A student for 4 different units, 4 different end-of-unit assessments developing. Okay, that's fine. The student wants to improve. They apply for a reassessment. They say, I'm going to do all of this specific information. They do it. They're approved. They sit for their reassessment, and it ends up emerging. Ooh, okay, something went wrong. You could be reflecting on that. Now, Unit 2 comes along, same thing. They are proficient, they want to reassess, and it goes down again to developing. Unit 3, proficient, they reassess, goes down to developing. As the teacher, the 4th time, when they ask to reapply, I'm going to say no. That's what I would do. The data that I have is showing that it's not getting better for you in this process. So I might have a sit-down conversation with you and say, listen, you've tried 4 times and it's gotten lower every time. Why don't we just forget about the last unit and you solely focus on what we're doing right now? Don't try to focus on what we're doing now and what you were trying to do last unit. Focus on what we're doing now and let's look at your results. So keep that in mind. It is going to replace your grade, and if you feel, yeah, that's something I want to try and do, then that proficiency level will be recorded. But keep in mind, it could go lower, but that will also be recorded. So, how will you know how to fill out this SMART plan? How will you know what is acceptable in regards to specific tasks that you're going to carry out? How will you know how to write that plan? Of course, we're going to teach you. Not only throughout your lessons, many teachers do SMART goals or SMART plans, but you are going to get this lesson specifically delivered to you tomorrow. And again, be aware that we know this is new. So the very first time you reassess, I would do it immediately. If I want to reassess, I would print that out, fill it out immediately, go to my teacher and say, this is the first time I've done this. Can you look over my plan? Do you think this is an acceptable plan? Is it okay? If they say no, I would ask, can I touch up the plan? Can I fix it? Because I want to make sure I know how to do these reassessment application forms right. That's likely going to be just fine, right? We're all learning and we're here to help you. All right.
Guys, thank you. I know conceptually this is very complex, and so I appreciate your attention. It will all kind of make sense in your individual classes, right? Because it will look specific. As you get into each teacher in each class, it'll look a little bit differently, but I think you'll understand it from there. For right now, do you have any questions? So the question is, on Power School, along with the mastery, proficiency, developing, and emerging, will there be a letter grade? For the class, yes. But remember that your report card is going to have 5 to 7 standards. Those 5 to 7 standards will have emerging, developing, proficiency, or mastery. The class as a whole will have a letter grade, but the standard will have one of those, what am I trying to say? Descriptors. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
You think you guys would be like show this presentation now, like back to school next for parents so they can see it, because I think it's going to be very hard for us to explain.
Yeah. In fact, this is a modified version of the one we gave to parents last spring. Yeah, and there will be a...
That's a great question, because your parents are going to have a lot of questions about this. Why? Because, like us, they went to school in a traditional grading system, A, B, C, D, F, points. So they need to understand this. We also have a gentleman coming September 26th named Tom Gusky. He is, for lack of a better word, the inventor of standards-based learning. He's world-renowned, and he's coming to our school. He'll be doing a presentation for parents on that evening. So I would encourage you to encourage your parents to come, because they're going to have a lot of questions. Okay? Thank you for your question.